Whisenhunt, and this is my new podcast, Sacred Horror. And there is a reason for the name, but we'll get to that. For those of you who don't know me, uh, I started out as an occult nonfiction author. Uh, my first book was Necrosmantia, Scrying the Underworld Through Necromantic Ritual, and it was followed, well, essentially it's a guide to the practice of necromancy, including my own scripted rituals. It was followed by the Exorcist Manual, Abrahamic Demons and Evil Spirits. Uh, it's a 500-page ritual dedicated to utilizing both the angels of the Shamham Faresh and the Goetia found in the Lemageddon, as well as the Ars Goetia. Uh, it's a system of exorcising a demonic spirit that has possessed somebody. And there's one that I don't have a physical copy here with me, and that was Scrying the Sacred Aether, or uh, Divining the Sacred Aether, uh, which is an 800-page book on tarot divination. And in the course of those, I also published the uh, Chronicles of Carnage trilogy, Beast Within, Feast of Saints, and The Awakening. Uh, and then there was House of Lies, which I've also uh, been, that possibly might be a film in the near future. Who knows? I spent the past 2 decades of my life uh, dedicated to occult practices and my pursuit of universal truth. And that's uh, what led me originally to the practice of necromancy, because I determined that if anyone could tell me what was really going on behind the scenes, it was somebody that already passed through the veil. And well, long story short, uh, here about 8 months ago, I had a dear friend, and this was less than a week uh, after releasing uh, Divining the Sacred Aether. Uh, I had, I used to, I hated Christianity with a passion. All organized religion, really, but especially anything to do with the Abrahamic uh, religions, like Christianity, Judaism, uh, Islam, all of it. Just I believed it was a weak, it was a religion that preyed on the weak, and that it was people that uh, were easily manipulated, and that's what it was created for. Uh, about 8 months ago, right after publishing Divining the Sacred Aether, I have a very dear friend of mine, the only Christian that I even wanted to know in this world. She's been my friend for about 25 years, and she's very dear to my heart. And so her beliefs had no bearing on our friendship. Uh, she is deals with a lot. I won't go into the details of her life, but she deals with a lot of uh, regret and guilt from her past. And so I send her random text messages, you know, periodically when I kind of feel like she might be struggling with that. And I did that one morning. And I was sitting here in my room, still half asleep, sitting on the edge of my bed. And as an author, I'm OCD about whether or not I made grammatical errors in my text message or whatever. So I'll reread them and see if I need a star correction. And as I'm doing that, this morning, not this morning, that morning, I realized I did not even recognize the language I was using in the text message. Uh, Kind of threw me off, threw me for a loop, of course. And as I'm going throughout my day, it's bugging me. It's on my mind. I'm obsessing over it. And so I start Googling the terminology. And it turns out they were word for word Bible verses. That might not be weird to some people, but to someone like me, I don't even know. I haven't even heard those. Uh, Cast your sins as far as the east is from the west. You're a new creation, blah, blah, blah. Mm. You know, those are not in my knowledge bank or vocabulary. So it progressed throughout the day even worse after that. So by the time I got off work and I was headed to pick my kids up, it had built up to a boiling point where I was kind of, it was bubbling like I was angry about it. And it just, the words just blurted out of my mouth. I was like, okay, God, if you're real, prove it. I was expecting some BS that I always make fun of people for. I was, God, prove to me you're real. And then you walk by and you hear somebody random go, God's real. And, I was expecting something like that and blow it off, go on about my life. But that's not what happened. Uh, it was, it was like my heart got turned inside out. A little bit about me. uh, I've been a die-hard metalhead since I was probably about 5 or 6 years old. My cousin, we called him Big Chris, he gave me a recorded cassette tape of Metallica's Kill 'Em All. And I just fell in love, and it just skyrocketed from there. By the time the kids at school, when I was in middle school, were listening to Metallica and Megadeth and Guns N' Roses and all that. They're like, this hits hard. And I'm like, here, check out Cannibal Corpse. You know, and something else about me is I have just, for the majority of my life, I've just had this loathing hatred for drug addicts. And that was due to my biological father. I never knew him because, in my eyes, he chose a needle over getting to know his son. And so there were a lot of resentments and uh, trauma that would bring up when I'd see them, I'd see him. And anyway, and now my my children's mother, my youngest two children's mother, don't even have them in their lives because of that same crap. So there's a lot of anger and animosity toward it. Anyway, uh, I challenged God, and instead of some abstract thing that I could write off as coincidence, my heart gets turned inside out. I can't listen to my music. It makes me physically nauseous, like physically sick, like I feel like I'm going to throw up, like my skin's crawling. Drug addicts are everywhere here. I don't see them with disgust. I see their souls. This progresses for 4 days. I literally see their souls crying out for love. This was, you know, yeah, it's awesome after the fact, but in the midst of it, I was going through a living hell. By the second day, it wasn't just that I couldn't listen to my music, I started craving worship music. I'd never heard it, not since I was like way young. I didn't even know what to look for. Uh, but I started craving it like I was an addict and it was a drug. And by the fourth day, it had become physically painful. Uh, if I didn't at least have it playing low in the background. Mm. That fourth night is was the breaking point. I was sitting here at my desk working on a book a novel I'd been working on, and had the music playing low in the background, you know, and I felt this atmospheric shift. It was subtle, but somebody that's used to working with spiritual beings, uh, I'm kind of in tune to it. I can tell when there's a shift in the atmosphere when it's spiritual. and it caught my attention, and it was like that was the knock on the door before it got kicked in, because I kid you not, I mean, some of you might laugh, some might scoff. I don't care. I the the manifested presence of God flooded my room. It knocked me out of this chair because I couldn't even just sit. I could not just stand. I couldn't. I had to be on my knees under the weight of all the guilt and shame in such a holy presence. You know, I look around now and I think, man, people have lost, like in the Christian world, they have lost their awe and reverence and fear of who God is. They need an experience like that. But the thing that broke me was that all the judgment and condemnation that I was feeling was internal. It was seeing how filthy and disgusting I was, how evil and vile I was in the presence of a holy God. Because there was no anger, no wrath, no judgment, no condemnation in that presence. It was pure, unconditional, incomprehensible love from a God that I hated to the point that I once had a Facebook page dedicated to your daily dose of blasphemy. And that broke me. Somebody that hated him, he was willing to go that far just to prove I'm real. Now, what are you going to do with it? He shattered my world, and I love him for it. I used to make fun of the crucifixion. I used to laugh and make jokes. Make jokes about about the most horrific death anyone has ever experienced. And it was the creator of the universe that experienced it for me. That don't mess your head up. So, and that is kind of where I'm headed on my writing journey. I'm staying with uh the horror, uh, but and I'm not watering it down. I'm not shying away from the graphic horror that horror fans expect and they look for. You know, a true horror fan ain't going to go for Frank Peretti, you know. Uh, but I see this as an opportunity to have a ministry and where I have a following and where I have a gift. And my latest release, sorry, this is just the get over that thing being backwards. Uh, this is my latest release. It was released on September 13th, Friday the 13th. Uh, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it kind of evolved as I did. It follows uh, Violet Shaner and her group of friends, and they're amateur paranormal investigators for their online vlog. And they decide to do a seance in the Truesdale mortuary where Ramsey Truesdale had used it as a torture chamber decades earlier. And all that torture and pain tore a veil, tore a veil, tore a hole in the veil, and sinister beings lurk in the darkness. And she has two influences. She has two best friends in here. Raven, who is a Wiccan, and whose aunt is a Wiccan high priestess. And they tell her that this is what is haunting and tormenting her is called the Bornless, an ancient entity made up, by the way. Uh, an ancient entity that predates creation and feeds on souls. And she also has her friend Tiffany, who is a kind of a background character at at the beginning. She's the scaredy cat, kind of a Daphne character from Scooby Doo, kind of how I picture her. Daphne mixed with Shaggy. uh, but she is a lukewarm, backslidden Christian that God starts calling her through dreams and visions. And things get pretty out there. Uh, but you'll have to pick it up to find out what happens. Like I said, no spoilers. And I am currently in the process of writing. I have, just as an update, I have two projects in the works. Uh, one of them is called Egregore, and it is a supernatural horror uh, based on the uh, pagan tradition of creating a thought form servitor uh, for protection, and uh, it's about a young woman named Caitlin that is violently attacked. She's a young Wiccan woman. She's a devout Wiccan. She's violently attacked on her way home, so trigger warning there. And she decides she's never going to feel helpless again. And so she decides to create uh, an egregore for protection. But things start getting out of hand, and she starts questioning whether she created it or she invited something far worse in. And the other project I have in the works that quite some time before this one comes out, it is what is known as a hybrid memoir. And it is uh, both a memoir and uh, teaching from my experience and knowledge from the occult. It's called The Occultist and the Cross, namesake of my other podcast. And it is, it's a memoir of my occult practice through the years and my eventual testimony. And within there, you'll learn the truths about a lot of things that, from an actual occultist perspective, from the knowledge that I gained through the years of practice and study and research, and uh, not like these Christian authors, and not to step on any toes, I'm not going to mention any names, but pretty much all the Christian books on the occult are people that have not experienced it or studied it or practiced it or believed in it ever. They're people that were raised in church, and they're regurgitating a bunch of fear mongering propaganda. When the reality is, yes, there's demonic forces behind it, but which ones? What is it? Not to give too many spoilers, but like things that are so commonplace in today's society that aren't even occult practitioners are just like embracing your you can't get on Facebook without somebody, using their zodiac sign as their identity. I'm an Aries, I'm a Cancer, you know, yeah, it seems harmless. And to me, I studied it in depth because I incorporated the astrological correspondences and associations into my rituals. And you learn that there is a fallen angel known as a king that rules over each of the zodiac constellations. So when you claim, I'm a Cancer, I'm a Aries, I'm a Sagittarius, you are saying that specific fallen angel not only has dominion over my life and determines what happens in my life, but they have authority to determine who I'm going to marry, what kind of job I have, even my own personality traits. They have authority to tell me who I am. That's what you're saying. Yoga. That's huge. Do you know what? An asana isn't just a posture. In the Hindu tradition where yoga came from, with all these demonic looking goddesses, multiple arms, blue skin, sharp teeth, standing on a pile of corpses. Yeah, those asanas, their purpose for their creation was to invoke a specific goddess into your body, just like ceremonial magicians do in assuming the god form when Wiccan high priestesses call down the moon. You're doing the same thing every time, and every time you switch physicians, that's calling another one, and another one, and another one. Pretty soon you're going to be legion. I'm just telling you factual how it is. These are the truths I'm going to go in depth into in the book, The Occultist and the Cross. All right. So, uh, hope I didn't scare everybody off. Uh, let me know what you think if you have read any of my books and what you thought about that book, uh, how you feel about the transition into where things are headed in my writing journey, and if, or just say hi. Well, that was the pilot episode of Sacred Horror. I hope you enjoyed it. Uh, moving forward, it'll be more bookish content rather, but this one was just kind of getting to know me as an author and as a person. Um, if you did enjoy it, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think. And moving forward, I'll be bringing guests on to talk about either their bookish content or if possibly uh, people who have read my book. I love interacting with my fans and my readers. So I'll be bringing some of you on here that would like to be on the show. Reach out to me at r.h.wissenhunt79 at gmail.com. And if you'd like to be on the show, let me know. And moving, we're also not just my books, but other independent authors. If you'd like to be on here and showcase your work and talk about how you write from that perspective, that of genuine horror, but a light that shines in the darkness that has power over the demonic forces. Till next time, I'm R.H. Whisenhunt. Stay spooky, but Christ above all.